Forms and Access serve as an interface for the user to be able to access the data without going into the underlying tables. So for example, you might not want the user to see all of the fields in a table. For example, some might be confidential, such as an employee's salary. So you might want to include only those fields that you need for the user to be able to access. And the user will access the data through forms to either maintain the data or just to view the data. So for example, if you needed to change a customer's address, you could open the form and edit the address in the form, and it would therefore change the address in the underlying table. So in this database, you have a form called location information. So if you open it, you can see the data in the form. So we'll come back to editing those in just a minute. So a form can be created either through what I call the quick form tool, or you can use the wizard. It's not suggested to go in and create one through the form design. It's much easier to use the wizard or either just the quick form tool. So if we go in and we want to create a form based on the presenters table, we're going to use the quick form here. So if you click on the presenters, you do not have to open it. You can click on form and it creates the form automatically for you. So in this case, if we look at the relationships, there are relationships set up between the presenters of the presentations and then the exhibits for each presenter. So those two tables are related together. So if we look at this form, there's a subform here which Access automatically recognizes because those two tables are related together. So in the relationships, you have for each presenter the exhibit ID, and here in the form it automatically recognizes that relationship, so it gives you the exhibit ID for the presenters, and you don't have to include that subform or subdata sheet, but it does provide some additional information, and Access does that automatically. You can navigate the form here. This navigation is just for the exhibits, so we'll go to the next one. This navigation is for the form itself in looking at each individual presenter's information. So in this case, let's change the title in the form, and I'm just going to go up here to the top and change this to Enter Edit Presenters. Now notice I was able to go in and edit that in this view. So if you look down at the left, or the right corner, you have the different views. So the first one is Form View. So if I click on that, this is what the user will see. You cannot enter anything or edit anything in this form. You can change your data. So if I went in and changed this address in the form, it would change it in the presenters table. And the next view is what we call Layout View. You can see the layout of the form is similar to a table. So when you edit these, you have to remember that it's in a table style format. The last view is the Design View. And this gives you a more detailed way to go in and edit your form. So let's say we wanted to reduce the widths of these controls because they're pretty wide. If you look back in your layout view where you can preview the data and also edit the form itself, it's a little easier to see. Now you can go in and just drag it and resize it however you need here in the layout view, or you can go into Design View and you can edit these here. So let's say, for example, we wanted to change these to about half of their original size, to about, let's just say 3.5, 3.6. So we would go right in here and edit that. Now, in this case, you can see there are two what we call controls for each field. The one on the left that's sort of transparent is the label for the field. The one on the right that has the white background, that is the control that pulls in the data. So if I look back in my either layout or form view, you can see this is the label and this one pulls in the data. Okay, so let's go in and delete the subform just to show you how you can do that. And when we resize these, you can use the ruler here. That's why I use design view. For the subform, if you don't want that subform, I mentioned earlier, you can delete that. So in design view, I go in and just click on the sub data sheet or subform and just press delete on the keyboard, and that will remove that subform. So let's go back into our layout view and let's sort the records, because you can do that through a form. So let's say we want to do it from last name, and we want to sort it in descending order. So there's a couple of ways that you can do that. I'm going to go back to the Home tab, and you can choose your options here and just say we want to sort it by, and then that way you can go in and see that it's sorted by the last name. So that maybe it's a little bit easier to go in and search for a person. So you can also use the, let's say for example, the last name Harvey. If I wanted to find that person, I can click on the last name, because that's how I want to search, and I can type in Harvey and press enter, and it should find Harvey in the data. Okay, so you can search for your data that way as well and look for different records. So I'm just going to save this form, and you can give it whatever name that you would like. So that's a little bit about editing and creating forms. The other quick thing that I will show you is that if I wanted to create that with the wizard, you would just go to Form Wizard, and make sure you have the presenter selected. And here you would just choose all of the fields that you need. Let's say, for example, I want all of them. Go here. And for your forms, you want those to show only one record at a time. So only one person at a time. If you choose tabular, that's more like an Excel spreadsheet, so that does not work. Columnar is more like a form where you see the data sort of in columns like we saw in the previous one. So we can click on next, and then we can name it, and it will open it in the view where we can see the information. So notice when we do it that way, it does not bring in that subform.